Hello and welcome to Ignore All Previous Instructions. I'm Pam Sally again, and here this week I have Ben Garvey. Hello.
Hey Pam, how's it going?
Good. Good to have you on here. And so for our listeners, would you please do a little who are you? Who are you in this space intro?
Right, right. So I'll try to go in descending order of like tech related stuff. So at the top most interesting thing, probably I co-organized the Philly Data Visualization Meetup. It's an event we have every 2 months in Philadelphia. It's a lot of fun. We do a really great job, and uh, we've been doing that for since 2018, but like really just came back in 2023 during COVID. So if you find us on meetup.com there. Uh, Next, I'm co-founder and CTO of a seed stage startup called Common Paper, which is a legal tech software that helps people generate contracts using standard business contracts for NDAs, cloud service agreements, all the stuff you need to sell SaaS software. We help you sort of get started, and we work with a lot of startups to help them, get their first order done, and then sort of manage those contracts as they grow, that kind of thing. And so I've been working on that for 4 years this week. So that's a kind of an
four
anniversary of me working on that.
years.
Yeah, no, isn't that
Yeah,
crazy?
4 years since Champagne in the Park.
Right. I was just
Yeah.
telling people because we just walked past there. We had an offsite last week, and people were fully remote, but like about half the teams in Philadelphia. So we flew all the rest of the people in to Philly last week, and we walked past Washington Square Park. And I was like, that's where we were when we raised our seed round. Me and Pam and my co-founder Jake and his wife were there, and we're just hanging out, cheersing while we still like couldn't go out to a real bar. So that was
Yeah.
fun. And there's times when I like, not all the time, but there are times when I miss that moment where we're just like, where we just sort of made our own fun wherever we went. And
There
even though it
are,
was a little cold,
yeah, the just hanging out outside was a pretty nice side trend there.
it really was.
I do think about that and try to bend toward that energy in the spring and summer when it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. There was something about to be said with like, you knew no one else had any plans, right? So you could just,
That's
they were,
also
they were either
true.
hanging out in their own house or their apartment, but they weren't going
Yeah.
anywhere else. So like, you could sort of invite yourself over to someone who has a nice deck to hang out on.
Hmm.
I had like a little mini cooler that pretty much saved my social circle during that era. It's great.
Nice.
Uh,
Traveled.
but also it was awful because COVID
Yes,
was
everything was
was a
awful. Yeah.
disaster on many many fronts. We're just reminiscing about the slight part of it that was that we missed, but yeah, 4 years, Common Paper. That's been really fun. We've been growing a lot in the last year, 2 years, especially in the last like 6 months. It's been like really fun to see it finally start to like work. It seems crazy to me that like it took that long, but it's like it's working now, which is cool. And yeah, and then the other tech related, I have like one of those bird feeders that records the birds. I have one of those. That's sort of tech, right?
That is the bird feeder is pretty cute.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed about that, like I see birds all around my town, but it's really just the same four birds that go to my backyard. It's like I think it's the actual same bird, not even the same type of bird. There's like four birds that show up every day, and then they don't they yeah, the other birds that I see in my front yard like don't even go to the backyard, which is crazy.
Have you named all of them?
So I heard there's a bird feeder that will actually name the birds for you, like like Reggie's come back again or whatever, but like it identifies them like facially or something, but like mine doesn't. So
Oh, see,
I
I
don't
was
know if it's
thinking.
like the same dark-eyed junco or like there's 50 of them, but I think it's like the same two or three of them.
See, I was thinking of a more mangled thing. So, story from Pam's childhood is
Yeah,
I uh used to have like or I had a air quotes pet cat outside where we put cat food
yeah.
outside, which also meant that we attracted other friendly creatures of the
Hmm.
neighborhood. And I started writing down and like drawing. There was a legend next to the back door of the various visitors and descriptions and what I named them, and
Great.
like the family of possums and the raccoons, and yeah, eventually at some point they suddenly disappeared because I think someone called animal control uh from feeding the wild. um
And what was the
you know
cat's name? Did the cat have a name?
um I want to say no. I think Bubba was one of my hamsters' names. So, but it was some kind of like, kind of. I'm from the city, but it was kind of a country name.
Yeah. But yeah, it's with the cats because you and I have the shared cat experience too.
Yes, yes. But yeah, Ben, my cat lived at Ben's for 3 weeks and is my cat's secret family in New Jersey.
Right. Love that. Yeah, we Miss Terrapin. She's a really great cat,
Mhm.
but didn't get along too well with my cat though. They stayed
Yeah.
separately for three
Well,
weeks.
your cat loved her.
Who wouldn't love Terrapin though?
Right. And then she wanted nothing to do with it. So,
Hmm.
but what we were
Yeah.
talking about before we started, I was wanted us to hop into was we
Hmm.
were talking about kind of I was feeling some kind of way of like, is it silly to, like it feels like I'm often talking about the past and then we talk about the present and then we talk about the future. And then what you and I were talking about was, well, that seems like a solid conversation, basically. That's
Yeah.
actually a helpful thing to do.
Yeah, because there are a lot of things that are changing and things that are they're different that we can't really go back to. Like the I don't think we'll ever, even though all the return to office stuff is you hear about it every day. I
Sure.
just don't feel like we'll ever have the same kind of office that we had in 2014. That just
I
like
agree.
isn't going to be possible. Maybe in certain places, certain situations, it will be close, but like we had 150 people that came to the office every single day,
Every single
and no
day.
one, and you only worked from home if you were like, we'd only work from home. Like we used to joke, we had our 20% time was like you worked at the office for, or work from home policy was you worked 100% of the time at the office and then another 2 hours at home. That was kind of like
The
the
joke
work from
work from
home.
home policy. Yep.
Yeah, like, and some people did occasionally, but it was just very much not the norm and not the expectation. And you had all the stuff that went with that, and but just doesn't seem like it's gonna be the case. And I've been working, obviously remotely for more than 4 years now, and it's just it feels like I missed lots of things related to it, but that's just never gonna come back, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I was remote before
Yep.
everyone was forced to. And I even was starting to do some advocacy around remote work and kind of what if we viewed, and this is still true, like what if we reviewed remote workers as a group with perhaps even policy preferences that and I wrote a post about this as, what
Yeah.
makes um remote work for like what makes a city good for remote work. And my argument is that it's the, it's things like public transit and good education, and it's things that what makes places good for remote work is, spoiler, really good healthy city stuff, which
Yeah.
is I think very nice compared to commuter based design
Right.
of,
Like
oh, how do
things
you let
like,
people drive in on a highway and then leave? It's like, well, how do you make it a place people want to be?
yeah, and things like not having a separate, like a segregated Google campus that's far away that they only
Yeah.
eat lunch there and never support the local places. Like that kind of stuff is, to me, seems like it makes it a really healthy way to live as a human being, not just as a worker, right? Like they can, supporting the
Mhm.
community and not just having it be contained in this other corporate entity, much less healthcare, much less everything else that's sort of tied to employers. Like you sort of decouple that a little bit and give people more choice and like, more opportunity for people to use that.
Yeah, and I was reading, so I believe it came out last month. Hopefully but it's a recent Atlantic on that people overall, like now, like to just spend way more time at home. So spend way more time at home, period, than
Mm-hmm.
outside of their home, and that the article it ties that to the loneliness epidemic, and so which that was making me think of something like we were talking about the job environment. And so also have a little small ebook on that's my very opinionated advice on how to get a job as a developer, which is basically the advice that because I've known my friends as someone who's changed jobs a lot. Um, um, I have stayed at some places for a few years,
Yeah.
but my first few years of working, I changed jobs every year. And at one point, after one job was only 6 months, and then there was one little interim. So, but
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think when you and I first met, this is probably a very long time ago, but I remember talking to you
mhm,
about how to get a job and we were talking about stuff and you said you were writing the book at the time. And it really is, that's one of the things that hasn't changed too much, I think, because I think not the 90% of the advice is to like know someone who works there already, or like have an intro that's like solid to get into some place that you want to work, and picking the place you want to work as opposed to applying at
Yeah.
places. Those are all like super helpful. And then once you get there, like negotiating properly and making sure that you're valuing yourself properly. These are things that I didn't sort of consider like when I was looking for new jobs. And then when I had to look for a new job in 2019, there were many times I was in an interview situation or a negotiation situation where I thought to myself, oh, what would Pam do in this
Oh.
situation? Like Pam wouldn't settle for the equity they're giving me right now. She would ask for 3 times this. And I sort of
Don't ask, don't get.
try to get out of my own brain and go and get that, and it was effective and it worked. So that was helpful.
Great. Yeah, I think so about the job thing of it hasn't changed, but in the because it when it was written, besides all of my unearned hubris, was that more meetups were around. There was much more of an
Mm.
in-person ecosystem. And I think that I think there's still a grief on what was lost in the sudden shutdown of everything with the pandemic. And that it's gone and it's not coming back. And and even if it came back, it wouldn't be the same because, the people have moved or changed or there's new people and that's great too. Or really great. But that like meet human beings is a part of advice that actually hasn't changed. And I feel like especially now, so now we're moving, past and present,
Mm-hmm.
is there's a lot of hunger for in-person experience. Like that's people are starting to have I started getting a few years ago, the like visceral reaction to someone inviting you to a Zoom.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. I
oh, do you
can't
want to go to my social Zoom? Like,
the social Zoom. I
no,
can't really do it anymore.
no, I simply say no.
I'm trying to think of the last time I did it, but I think I would have to politely decline. I've done it occasionally for work because we're remote, so we have to do it. Same
Sure.
occasionally with
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
different for things that we could do in person. The big thing for me is like obviously we talked about the my data viz meetup, and it's not just me. I have a co-organizer, Ben Cates, and Herb Lau started it, and he helps out too. But
Mhm.
we get a lot of questions like, oh, are you going to live stream it, or are you going to provide a recording of it? And
Right.
I uh, I I think my co-organizers would be like they wanted like that explore that and the thing, and I'm always adamant no, because I want it to be number one. I want it to be an in-person event that if you don't go to it, you kind of miss it, right? And there's plenty of stuff
Yeah.
for people to do on the internet that that they're not missing out that much by like not going to the event, but it's supposed to be an in-person event that if you don't go, you kind of miss what was happening there. But the other thing is I want to make it sustainable for myself because I don't have a lot of extra help. We don't like when you said the things that's different, like you can do a meetup on and keep it sustainable and do it on the cheap, but there isn't a lot of extra sponsorship for stuff like this. We're getting some good
No.
ones
Yeah.
from for space donations, but like if it was 2016, I could have had my pick of any tech company in Philadelphia that would want me to host the meetup there. And now
Mhm.
it's like pretty tight. Like if I ran out, like I've had it at a bar, I've had it at a couple different companies, but if I like if those all dried up, it would be tough for me to find another venue that would like do it for us at a reasonable cost. And
Mhm.
so that part of it's a little bit tricky, but I want to keep it simple and sustainable. And I don't want to worry about, okay, I know it sounds good live in person. I don't want to worry about if the live stream is working or something during the event. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And to make that simpler for everyone, but well, mainly not for everyone, just for myself,
Yeah,
really.
I think that's okay to
I'm
make
just
it
being
simple for
very
yourself.
selfish in that part.
I yeah, and being a a producer, someone who produces in-person things, that uh we are often very much taken for granted. So that, people
I did
come to
have
a
someone
thing
give me a
and
Christmas
yeah.
ornament for doing the meetup. He
Oh,
made
that's
this
very
guy Mark,
sweet.
who has come to like almost every event we've had. He makes these origami Christmas ornaments, and he gave me one. I felt very appreciated.
That is really cute. Oh, that's adorable. I knew someone Robbie Kraft, I believe, is the person who did a talk on origami software. So that,
Oh, interesting. So it's like comparing the way how you build software to origami.
no,
Oh,
software for making origami
oh,
patterns.
got it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And which is it was kind of, which I believe this was a Strange Loop talk. So this is, in the Strange Loop YouTube archives, those are still up. And so it's like he took things, I feel like he found software from like the 90s. So it was somewhat like historical.
Hmm.
And that there's, the details of like, because you could, in theory, like you can kind of invent, because it's all mathematics. So you can
Yeah.
invent origami like in, kind of origami CAD type situation. And it has a concept of the folds. And then you could like design cool things. So
Yeah,
it's
that
a
sounds really neat. So
it's
it's
a
like
really
not
fun
just like
talk.
making a bird, it's like these abstract designs that you wouldn't normally think of, but you can see the finished result and just try to build
Yeah,
it.
if you get to a finished result and you can figure out the steps that went to getting there.
I did have this
And
whole thought though when you said the original one, which the original thing what I thought was that was comparing making origami to like making software that like
mm,
you'd have like MVC and there should be a balance between the models and the view and the controller and like they sort of like fit together in a way. And I thought that was like that was kind of maybe
playful,
beautiful, but I'm not sure it would really work. But that I was thinking going that direction.
cute visualization. I also like the idea of the not live streaming thing for the I like JOMO, the joy of missing out. I like that
Mm,
term. And but also that I like that I like the meetup a lot, and I like that it like you encourage people who might not have speaking experience or might not think of themselves. Like I have a friend who I'm trying to encourage to speak who doesn't, she's done some like Toastmasters, I think, but
hmm.
she does some data work and but hasn't really talked as much in that area. I don't not and so I feel like she could do the thing, and not being recorded is a helpful, you know,
Yeah,
makes it a discrete experience.
I think so too. I think that uh, I really do encourage people that are on the beginning of that journey or had made one cool thing and they wanted to show it off. I've had maybe only one or two people like take me up on that, but I think it just even when I say that, it sort of like helps people understand like, okay, maybe I have something valuable to share. And for people who haven't been there, what we do is it's usually have two or three speakers talking about anything related to data visualization. So it's charts and way to explain you know data through visual representation, and we really sort of could do anything related. It's one of the I think it's like one of the secrets of why it's been fun is that we don't really run out of topics because if you do like a JavaScript meetup or a Ruby meetup, you sort of can talk about that technology or uses of that technology. But I have felt like that you run out of topics very quickly and quickly pivot to like just talking about the latest library or talking about having commercial vendors come in and talk about their pitch for stuff, which is less interesting to me.
Right.
And I think we are in a spot where we can talk about we get the people that come are typically like in tech, they're in academia, or they're like in journalism or some use of or marketing or something like that. And then so like the nexus of all those is people doing interesting stuff that can be shared on a slide deck, right? That it's not just like I talked about some cool algorithm and then this is like what it represents, but like we can show the work visually. So in person and
Mm-hmm.
seeing it kind of is fun. And we've had talks to people in all those different areas, and then we just go hang out at a nearby bar afterwards. So you get the social component of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's obviously totally optional, and people sort of get what they need. And for me, it's both. It's like I like the learning component, like meeting all the people, and then afterwards, getting to know them a little bit more socially, which is fun. But I forget where we're going with this, but uh, but the playbook for the meetup is from the first meetups in Philly that I went to, which were the JavaScript meetups or the Ruby meetups that were back in the day when you were organizing it. And I think I was a speaker at a couple of them. And I think that's like how we originally met in the first place, either there or Ignite Philly, which Ignite Philly was one of the ones I feel like that fit that niche where it was like interesting stuff to learn about, and then you get to meet the people doing interesting things
Mm-hmm.
in Philadelphia. And it did come
Very
back.
fun
I wasn't
format.
able to go to the last Ignite they had, but I'm hoping they bring it back again because I would definitely like to go.
I think they should. Did they, was it an annual? Like, did they just do it? Because I knew they did it in May
Yeah,
2024.
it used to be twice a year.
That's what I thought. So, but I don't remember one happening in the fall.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
it's a big production. Like they do it at like a pretty large venue, and they have a lot of speakers. So, like human wise, it's
Yeah, no, it's
a
like hard
fair
enough to
amount of production.
yeah, it's hard enough to get 2 or 3 people to like go up and talk for, but if it's
Yeah.
20 people for 5 minutes each, and then I think it's
Yeah.
like all one slide deck that just goes, and so they spend a lot of time working on it, but it is fun. You've done it, I've done it. It's I
Yeah.
think I've met you know not all of them, but most of the Philly people I've met, I think in tech or wherever were from through Ignite.
Yeah. A second. Yeah. So yeah, I've been doing some more event production on the side, and I've also been pondering more event production ideas. I'm like a more like especially a more like general networking one is one of the things I'm thinking about versus
Hmm.
like the one I'm producing the dance event is a you know for social for pure fun, no business. But yeah, thinking about like the jobs thing, and there are a lot of people looking for jobs, and the sitting in your house and obsessing about your resume, I really truly don't believe works, or I think it's not my favorite way to get a job. I have done that exactly once. Like my first job out of college is like completely like I applied to a thing, I didn't know anyone there, and I got it.
Yeah, it
And
can
that's
happen.
like it was
It it
daunting. It was
it could
so
definitely
hard.
happen, but I think you will only get jobs that you're grossly overqualified for.
Oh
Like
yeah,
there's this.
I was an IT manager and I made like 30 grand. Yeah. So it's like so that I was very competitive for.
Yeah.
So and yeah, I think and people remembering, oh, there was this uh great novel. I don't know if I had talked to you about this yet, but there was like a little like in the co-working space they have like little activities sometimes, and they had a little networking event, and they had a sign by like the whatever the little company that sponsored it, and in the blurb it was about like creating contacts and connecting people with their blah blah words, and then the end was so you can get back to what's important, generating revenue. And it's
It's funny.
like that's it's not the world I want to build. I do understand that that's your job,
That's
like
the score of America. Yes.
that is, yeah. And even Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People is over 100 years old now, and it's which is wild. But when you read the book, it's like care about people and know when their birthday is. Like it's like know the
Yeah.
names of their pets, know who their kids are, like give a care about people is the networking advice. And it's like start with it seems like it's like I'm
It's
like
funny
it's
because
a
yeah,
radical idea. It's like be a decent human being,
the
and
title of
then
that
the
book
other
I
stuff
think
will
turns
work
people off,
out.
right? Like the
It
title of that
does,
book
but
turns
it's a
people off because
trap.
it is a trap. But it's such a great book because it's like so simple. It's just like
It's simple.
be an interesting and thoughtful
Be
and
Yeah,
curious person about the people around you.
yeah.
And I feel like I
Right.
don't know.
And oh, be interesting is a good one too. Yeah. You're about to
Uh,
say.
oh yeah, I feel like I do know so many people who you talk to them and they just like talk about themselves for like 20 minutes straight.
Yeah.
And it's like you just there has to be a give and take, and all it takes is a little bit, and that person, everyone should read the book. If you haven't read it, it's like
It's
public domain
really
right now or something or what?
probably should be. Yeah, at
Yeah,
this point.
you can
I
find
read
one
it from
for
the
$5.
library. Yeah. Or, maybe it might be in the Internet Archive. Might be able to borrow a
Yeah, and like
copy.
all self-help books, you could read the first 3 chapters and be done and put it down, and you won't really miss much at all.
You'll pretty much get it. I do like near the end of it, I believe was the on the Be Interesting. There's a something in there that's I think he was quoting someone else perhaps. So it might not be Dale Carnegie, but it was on the lines of you want to be a better conversationalist, learn the violin. Like you want to be a better conversationalist, be interesting. Like take an interest in something. Interest is interesting.
He didn't say learn
So
JavaScript.
no, it's too long ago. Said learn Java. Um um so yeah, that is it's all different, but it's all the same. Talk to human beings. Be good to yourselves and each other. the Jerry
That
Springer quote.
that would be a good blog post or some kind of thought experiment. Be like, what would Dale Carnegie write today in the book? He would be like, oh, have a TikTok or something like that, right? That would be like something he'd be trying to do, or like retweet people or something. I don't know what he would say, but
Yeah, comment on people's content to like let them know that you liked it.
yeah.
Like
Speaking of
not
that,
not only to drive them to your content, but to genuinely and sincerely be like, if you see something, give it a, hey, I liked this.
two
Goes a
things
long
on
way.
that. I've had a blog now for over 20 years, like
Mhm.
23 years, I think, 22 years.
Yeah.
It was since 2002. So you do the math on whenever this podcast comes out. But uh, that's what people did in the old days. They would just like comment on each other's blogs
Yeah.
every day. And that was how the connection was there. And they would like, mention each other's blogs when they were there. And that's how it worked back then. But
Blog
if
roll.
you're on Blue Sky, like I think we all a little bit conditioned in the last few years of Twitter to like stop engaging because it was like making everything worse around us. But like
It's
Blue
true.
Sky needs engagement. Like I try to go in and comment on people's stuff and like their stuff to keep the activity high or whatever. But
Have you
if any for people who are not on social media or trying to reduce it, do whatever you need to do to save your sanity and save your
right?
spirit. But you know Blue Sky's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah. I was looking at Noster again. That's notes and other stuff
Oh,
relay.
interesting. Yeah, I don't know this one. It's a
Um,
new one.
it's another protocol. Because Blue Sky isn't technically decentralized. Um, it's like kind of sorta. It can be thought of as decentralized, maybe, but in the technical rules of it, Christine Lemmer Weber, who was on the show a while ago, she wrote a whole thing about
Oh,
because
good.
she's an expert in decentralized protocols. And so she was like, let me look at this. And
I've wondered about this. I think it's like a spec, but it's not sort of like it's still like
it's
run
not
centrally.
quite, yeah, it's still run more centrally. Noster is looks like it's more decentralized, but I haven't read the paper. But I just
Yeah.
happened to stumble across it again. You know what? Oh, you know what it was? Is that I am trying out Tidal, the music service,
Hmm.
to try to perhaps de Spotify myself and see if I can make that migration. Uh, TBD, I have since I run some music playing events. But uh, on Tidal, you can connect to the Noster network
Oh, cool.
and you can use Noster as a way to connect into your Tidal and kind of the decentralized, dreams of portable identity. And can we please like not have user accounts on every single service? Like, is there like, can I own my identity and carry it somewhere? Like this impossible N+1 standard problem. Um,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
And not have it be run by Google or something like that. Right. You're just not
Yeah,
using
and
Google
not
login for
log in
everything.
with Google. Yeah. So, hmm.
I did listen to the episode where you were talking about a lot about passkeys and passwords.
Mm-hmm.
And that was super
Mm-hmm.
interesting because I've been dealing with that security stuff a lot at work. But I do think uh, it is nice to have like the ability to sort of for companies like mine to sort of outsource some of the identity management to like third parties, but like either whether it's Google or Auth0 or something like that. But uh, yeah, it does. We do have this sort of like service fatigue, right? Or like
Mm-hmm.
this sort of identity fatigue where now it's like there's so many different tools we use, tools that you have to use as part of your job, tools that you use
Mm-hmm.
because people invite you to them or whatever, or like or not even the ones that even if you're refusing to use it. Like I pretty much refuse to use Facebook. Um, no judgment for anyone who does. Just for me, since for from past elections, just felt like it wasn't a net good for society, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's like really hard because like it's my kids' school will use Facebook for stuff or their groups are in like that they that's the only place they put things,
Right.
and so I have to like ask for it separately or something like that, or like invites. I've like been not invited to stuff just because I was
Right.
not
And then
Facebook
it's
events.
like, do you want to, right? And do you want to transfer, like now your kids are older, but like, you're transferring that social cost to your kids when you make that choice. Like,
Hmm.
which sounds dramatic, but like is an accurate statement of the situation, I think. At least
Yeah.
I read what I thought would be a cool nonfiction book, but actually was secretly like more of a memoir. And it was the title's leaving me, but the author talks about, information and data and things like that and her relationship. And then with it, and she mentioned that specifically about her kids and her family and where she settled, being in like, Brooklyn and, not getting invited to the play dates and it's like having to think like, do I want like, is this worth what I'm expressing to like in a way, some of it is like her
Hmm.
kids know more things than other kids because they felt the difference between point A and point B. But you know, she ultimately decided to be more flexible in what she wanted to do. So
Yeah. And that was for her or for her kids?
for both, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It is difficult. I mean, I'm talking a good game, but I still have an account just so I can use Facebook Marketplace because that was the one that there was just no, like, Craigslist is not an alternative for what the
You
content that's on
gotta
there.
just make a fake person.
Yeah.
Get rid of your regular person. But see if you like your fake person is also connected to like that your fake person, your real person can do the school things and things like that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, it's tough. There's not a good answer, but I think the original point which you had, which is there's got to be a better solution to this,
yeah.
right? For all
So
this
I'm
stuff we
gonna
have.
use that to try to walk us to ride a segue over
Yeah.
to SaaS and AI, software as a service. I thought so. Here's the
Yeah.
segue that the bumpy segue we drove is that so when you talk about like SaaS software as a service is dead because AI will replace everything, right? I don't think so. I think it's going to make it worse, and there's going to be infinitely more because it makes the barrier to opening a software as a service even lower too, and that I don't know. Like I almost wish like there here's an idea of like software main streets or software villages of like a software bazaar. Like there's so many now like bespoke tiny software tools that do tiny things. And
Mhm.
it's like I imagine if I like went to a bazaar and I, was walking like in a physical space and I was walking around and I was getting like an apple, but also a piece of jewelry and also like a mirror. Um,
Mhm.
because that's, I'm just like in the marketplace and there's like all these various things that I want to take to my house. But on the internet, there's infinite. And it's a little tangent a little bit, but it made me think of I was reading about the unpleasant marketing trend of companies paying Mechanical Turk type or, AI either bots or Mechanical Turk type people to go and comment on Reddit posts and subreddits to promote their software product. So
Mhm.
go to a specific community that, you're trying to ask a question and say, hey, I'm interested in buying, a mirror. And then someone comments is like, wow, I really love these mirrors over here. And then that person is secretly paid by a company. And you look at, their posts and they've been like posting this everywhere and like, in a very
Yeah.
unsophisticated way. And it's just spamming with marketing
Right. And the bad thing about AI is you could do that in a sophisticated way that you could like create the
and
account, warm it up,
fast.
have it post other things that seem
Uh-huh.
relevant
To
and
create
all,
like a
yeah.
trust score. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I'm hoping I'm hoping that that the companies like Reddit will know that that's like a bad thing for them for their business long term to do it. That they'll like figure out a way to like prevent it and stop it. Like we have all kinds of this, not just completely fake content, but like pseudo fake content. Uh,
Mhm.
Someone I know just had their like annual review and like from their boss, and it was like barely clearly written with ChatGPT. Like you could the ways you can sort of tell there's like too many M dashes.
That's also, it's just, that feels offensive.
Yeah, yeah,
That's like this, this ceremony that we do, this ritual that we do, which you would like, maybe you think it's stupid. But like an annual review is when you, my, supervisor, we together reflect on a year that we've been working together. And how you decided to interpret that was with generative AI. Like that's how you showed that you value our time. Like that just seems very insulting.
Yeah, I think there are, there are ethical ways, or not even, I don't even know if it's an ethical thing, but there are good ways you could use it and bad ways you could use it, right? If you had like, if you asked, if you inputted a bunch of like review data, like peer reviews and performance data and things like that, and you said like, oh, give me a good summary of this data and look for things that I might not have otherwise seen or whatever. And then you took that and you wrote the review. I think that's probably totally fine. I
Yeah.
think but having it just write out the words for you with the schlock that comes out of it. Normally, it's a bad write. Like I think it's actually good at writing code. It's like really bad at writing copy for stuff. Like I try to get it to write just as an experiment blog post for me, and just like the voice that comes out of it is just not a creative human voice or an interesting human voice. But like code at least should be boring and straightforward and
And
simple.
readable. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not too bad at that. It's pretty good at that in most cases, and I use it. I don't know how you often use it in your daily work, but I think I use it like pretty often now. Especially like I just feel like the one benefit I get from it is that I just don't get stuck anymore. Like it used to be, I'd be working on something and just some obscure, uh, syntax or function or some method that I know I'm missing that I just can't remember exactly what it is, or is like I know a bad implementation of this, and I know there, especially we use Rails, and there's so many like magic Rails methods here and there that like you don't know unless you've used it before. It's just really good at pointing out that stuff because it's well trained on technology that's been around for a long time. That is a nice feeling, and I think it's I think of it a lot, kind of like they used to get lost in your car driving around. We don't do that. Like I got my license in 1996, and I used to get lost all the time driving around. Had a map in my car trying to figure out where I was in New Jersey, and now that just doesn't happen anymore. No matter where I was and whenever where I am, I always have a perfectly updated map in my phone that I can just figure out where I'm going, and that feels sort of similar on the programming side. That I just don't get stuck programming like I used to get stuck.
I Yeah, I hear that, and I'm open to being like talk me out of this position. Is
Yeah.
that what I kind of going back to like thinking of like things I grieve or loss is like, well, then that's why I went to meetups and why I then talked to people after meetups and then we like would chat with each other and I would be like, hey, like I would talk to a person
Mhm.
and that I felt like made my brain get better and I would understand the problem and versus like I'm working with some people who use AI heavily in their development and I think they don't know how things work. Like I have like in what do I mean by that? The like the process of for yourself like sure like so maybe I'm doing it to like I do use it, yeah, I use
Mhm.
Copilot and like have it on the sidebar and so like explaining the like I'm trying to do this like it's kind of like I have my rubber duck pair programmer without having to air quotes bother anybody, but actually human contact is nice and like you know it's a thing that I kind of miss, but I liked your
Were you?
analogy. Oh, go ahead.
I was there. Were you heavily into like pair programming at any part in your career?
Yeah, I was more in the, and I am doing some of it lately, but not, definitely not like so. And lately, in the last like 2 months, more had a job change that leads to more opportunities for it. So that's generally very good, and so it's even just an option, and where it wasn't before. Um, but even yeah, I guess it was also in the past too. That's why I would prefer to work at a company versus being a freelancer or a contractor because it's nice to be in an organization where there's other human beings and that's kind of like part of what the
Hmm.
job is having a team and talking to other people and being like the person for other people to talk to like reflect on things and bounce off. uh in a way the LLMs have made it a lot easier to be a contractor because that I mean when I would do my contract phases before LLMs, the terror of, oh no, I don't know how to fix this problem and it is only I. who has agreed to this contract. Um, it's definitely like that's not scary anymore. That is pretty helpful. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, and like I don't know, maybe I'm a bad prompt engineer, honestly, too, because like I think it's like, yeah, I can rubber duck at it and then it'll give me something. And then the thing it gives me, I'm like, that's not going to work. But like seeing the thing it gave me and knowing that it's not going to work leads me to the thing that I know will work.
Yeah.
So
There are
it serves the
definitely lots
purpose of
of
the unstucking.
there are definitely lots of code that gets generated that doesn't do what it's supposed to do, or is like very
Just wrong.
clearly
And then
has
you're like,
problems.
hey, this didn't work. And it's like, oh, right. Of course it didn't work because reason. And it's like, well, what? If you act like you knew, it's like gaslighting.
Right. It makes me think that we need like another like Terminator Skynet movie that's like between like the robots haven't taken over and after they've taken up, but between there where they're started trying to take over, but they're just not very good at it. Like it's like the name of your podcast is like
Yeah.
basically how you would like stop the Terminator. We just tell them like, oh, and then now fight that guy, and then they would like fight each other,
Ignore
and
previous instructions. Make a
yeah,
sandwich. Yeah.
right. And so it would be it was a way it would be like laughable that they'd be like we'd be easily defeating them in this whole movie. And then maybe at the end they would finally get better. That would be the sad ending or something. But I feel like we need that.
Mm.
We're missing that middle part.
Like idiocracy, but it's
There you
the
go.
robot.
Exactly.
Idiot.io.
All right.
Yeah. So
Start the screenplay.
start fundraising, yeah, for the movie. Start opening Kickstarter. But what you had more thoughts about SaaS and AI though.
Yeah, so I think we're in there's different like we're going through certain like phases of this whole AI journey as an industry,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that and this is nothing new. This is not anything that I've come up with. It's just I'm hearing everyone talk about. But like I feel like with this obviously AI coding and summarization is like the feature that everyone keeps adding to every product, which is
Mm.
like I don't need to summarize these emails. Like I can read an email and just they're not that long, and I just have too many of them. Summarize all my emails for me. Then I maybe will talk about it, but like just the one email, like that seems like a not a great use of it. But the AI coding is interesting. But I think there's like I really think that there's like there's this thing that's going to come soon where it's like modding software. So it's not us writing the software. It's users talking to the software and getting what they want out of it. And the easiest example of that is like we build the software that has all these settings, right, that are just buried 10 levels deep in settings, and the user just wants to do what they want to do. And the better iteration of that is like what Apple relies heavily on is just search. So like no one ever clicks through all the menus of an Apple search menu. They just search through the settings menu.
Settings
They search
menu.
for it and it highlights it and it surfaces like pretty well to what you want to do.
Yeah.
Now making sure that that's the right search result or like doing the thing you want to do still, or that if that thing even exists is still hard. But I really think like it would be great to be like, oh, I have this really obscure bug. Like for some reason, I can't. I had an issue where like GarageBand would not play any sound at all, like no sound at all for GarageBand, and it just
Hmm.
suddenly happened one day. And plenty of other people had the same problem, and there's a bug. But it was a setting that I had turned on somehow that was like I don't know some listening thing that like the microphone is listening some of the time for some sort of command.
And so if the microphone's listening, it can't output sound.
Yeah, and it got
Yeah.
stuck in some sort of state. And it would be really great to explain all the context, something like this, to like some kind of system that would sort of interpret all this information and sort of come up with a customized solution for what I'm trying to do with it. And that's just an example of a bug, but like, what if there's something related to just a feature that I don't know exists? Like if you didn't know, if you have, most people know there's like there's an Apple feature called handoff, right? That lets me copy and paste basically from my laptop to my phone and
Oh,
vice versa.
yeah.
And like that was the thing I didn't know about. And I asked in my work Slack, I was like, I keep pasting links to myself in Slack. There has to be a better way for someone to do this. And someone's like, oh yeah, you just turn on handoff on your Mac and it totally works. And that was a thing that like I would have we've been sort of trained, at least I've been trained for the last 30 years, like that the OS help docs are just worthless. Like you will never like anytime a help message pops up in
Oh,
Windows or a Mac,
right.
like it's going to be the
Xbox.
most outdated
Yeah.
thing possible.
Yeah.
But like I think an LM could fix that. So I'm actually a little bit
Mm.
bullish on on the OS side that you could end up having the settings and stuff like that all kind of work the way it's supposed to work, which is like I ask a computer to do something and it kind of does it. So then take that the next step. There'll be sort of using software, if I'm using a text editor or notes app and I want to do a specific thing, I sort of just ask it to do the thing, and it sort of does the thing that, or works in a way that is better for me, and maybe not necessarily everything else. So it's like, think of it more of like less of like writing your own software, but more like modding your own software. I think has like
Mhm.
big potential for standalone software. And if you can do that with standalone software, maybe you don't need as many SaaS tools, or maybe the SaaS tool is now just strictly like the collaboration piece layer, and everyone sort of has their own little pieces of software in there that can be shared, across that. So I I think that's where like things are going to head, but I don't know. I don't think SaaS is dead. I think it just sort of like has to go like one more level up, and it just only handles like authentication and the different categories of stuff that's available to talk to each other. But inside the software itself, like the user just making their own stuff, like CRM, I think it will definitely happen. There's like such a huge ecosystem of like Salesforce plugins and stuff that's just like a whole huge market that's ripe for someone to come in and just for companies to set them up and make them sort of just work the way that they want to work, as opposed to how someone else decided they should work.
Mm.
And I think that the only way to scale that is either a huge, gigantic functioning ecosystem, or AI is going to just, spit out the things that users want.
Couple ideas there. Well, one was, were you thinking, because I like the way you use the word mod there, and were you thinking of the way people used to do game mods?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think like if you look at like Roblox, it's like the first
Mm-hmm.
place this is going to happen. If people don't know Roblox, it was a great hack for the App Store for parents and kids. And so every time a kid wants to install an app on their iPad or whatever, they have to ask their, whoever owns their account's permission. But once you install Roblox, inside of it, there's like a million games that are made by developers, thousands of games, and so kids can sort of get new games whenever they want through the platform. And most all of them are free, or they're ad supported and or partially free or whatever. But like there would not, it just seems like the natural progression for me is like that the kids would now just be able to like write the games that they want in there, and the games would just
Yeah.
appear. And they're very like sand garden, and there's like libraries and things like that to make it easier. And it's, it's not, so it wouldn't be sort of like, you know, arbitrary code execution,
Yeah.
but you could make it so that the AI system understands what things are possible in the game and what are the parameters, and make something that they could not even just like make and then play, but just like continually mod while they're playing it. It just feels like to me that there's no way that that's not going to happen.
Yeah. And okay, so on the mods, but then so a this is not something I'm super well read on, so disclosure.
Yeah.
But I think about, so one of the issues running into with LLMs and AI models is I imagine this like OS level centric AI, but I have a hard time imagining it getting built in anything other than English. That like there's not enough there's not enough training, or hasn't been training for languages other than English, most particularly the ones that are not, you know, okay, sure, not English, but also not Spanish, not French,
Mm,
not, Mandarin, Russian. So, like, there's a lot of human languages, and so human language as interaction. I feel like I see there's going to be, if there continue to be a trend, or like if like that flavor, because it really is almost a flavor of human computer interaction. So
mm-hmm.
is that like the LLM interaction is the natural language processing of, oh, this is, talk to computer, computer do thing. And so that becomes an interface. But if that interface is English, then that's, I feel like it's an interesting question to think about, of like, how can that work for like a world where some people speak different languages?
Right. So I think I'm definitely not an expert in this or anything like that. But the thing I have read about the Chinese model DeepSeek, right, is that
Mm.
they instead of training it on, they did train it on a lot of English and a lot of, other languages, but they used math and science to generate their own content. That's stuff that's like verifiable. So like you're using mathematics, like if you imagine if you're training with the sort of like fill in the blank sort of problem, like solution with text. Like if you say like, oh, my cat ate blank, right? And it sort of like has seen that sentence a million times on the internet. And so I could say my cat ate cat food is probably the most likely answer, but there's other answers that are less, common. But that sort of like the amount of text you can train that on is like limited because there's no like rules. There's not there are some rules, but they're all sort of ephemeral, changing rules in many different languages. And so it's like you have a limit of training data, but they sort of built it on things that were trainable and like recreatable. So you can have a math system that like understands mathematics and it runs slower maybe than the LLM and it takes time to compute, but you could generate more math problems and then solve them and then train the LLM on like how to solve those math problems. And so it seemed like they were able to do it, at least in terms of math and certain parts of science. They were able to sort of develop even the language skills in a way that sort of without having to train it on the entire internet like all the other American LLMs are trained on. And it's good for the problems that you're citing, which is like, oh, we might not have enough data to train these other languages and stuff, that there might be other ways to do it. Bad in the if you're an AI doomer, that we might just like not have the limit that we had, which we thought, which was that there's not enough data to train an AI that's smart enough to have a super intelligence. But that's a whole separate conversation, I guess.
Whole different doomer conversation.
Yeah, it's a little scary, I think.
Yeah.
It's like if you can play Go against itself, that's like a contained system, so they can like play itself forever and just get amazingly good at it. But this is Go. But it seems like there's other categories of stuff that's similar, not as easy to compute as Go, but like I said, math and science look like good categories for that.
Mm. Yeah, I think the parts of it being scary kind of they tie into the back to the jobs of like, oh great, we can fire all these people because we don't need any people to write things anymore or to make art anymore because we'll just have an AI do it, even though that's less fun.
Right. Yeah, I do like the people that commenting that say like, can we have an AI like, clean up plastic from the ocean instead of like,
Yeah,
writing screenplays?
right. It's like, no, I want to write screenplays
Right.
and I want, let's figure out solutions to, you know, greenhouse gases and materials
Hmm.
engineering and, uh, you know, interesting problems like that.
Yeah, I made some predictions about how I think software is going to go and how I think it's going to be easily moddable through the systems like this because people will want what they want and we won't have to like do the thing where I'm building a SaaS and I make one change and deploy it to all my users. Like the users still want different things that's unique to them, but past that, I really don't know, how that's all going to go after that.
Yeah, I'm wondering about how to architect a software platform that does that. I feel like I was thinking about this recently actually about feel less feel like there's a less of a browser plugin ecosystem anymore to me. Like I'm just like, or like, I mean, of course I use a bunch and they're more like just standard is probably what it is. But I felt like there were like, oh, new browser plugins or writing browser extensions, was more of a thing and kind of a big deal to be able to extend your browser. Um, so how can someone like building I guess yeah, you just run into the security problems so fast that that is a risks to let people extend the platforms when you're writing up the software system.
Yeah. I
Like
still use
definitely
a
been
lot.
tried, but
I still use a lot of Chrome plugins though.
yeah, still use Chrome.
I do use Chrome, yeah. Your Firefox?
Firefoxy. Mhm.
I do think Firefox like saved the world though. Like 2003 Firefox like defeated Microsoft and like the first time I used Grease Monkey and which is the plugin ecosystem or whatever for Firefox, it was like total game changer for me. It's great.
Yeah, they really fight for an open web. So they I have all the like don't track me settings. That has cool stuff like Facebook containers. Like you can have it set up so that anytime you open a meta product, it puts it in like a little container so it can't see anything else that you're doing on the internet.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
The I think the only reason I use, not the only reason, but like one of the only reasons I use Chrome is I just think that debugger's better.
Mm,
Um, so that's because I don't think it's faster anymore. I think
mm.
it's mostly slower than
It's
Firefox is.
actually, yeah, it's probably slower because there's a lot of like adware bloat nonsense, and the Firefox will block all that by default. So,
Right.
most of the time you can have it blocks a lot of trackers,
Let's
very
give it a
much.
shot.
And then on my phone, you can use Firefox Focus so that everything you open is in its own individual thing. So there's no, at least the way I use it, there's no tabs. It's
Oh,
just
really?
Firefox Focus. It does its thing, and then you close that, and it's gone. There's no history, whatever. Like
Hmm.
it does make things annoying. I open in other browsers on my phone if I want a session, but it's actually I guess that makes it kind of interesting because then I actually am thinking, oh, I want a session rather than creating a bunch of sessions that
Mm.
not necessarily great to just leave around. Security people usually don't like you to leave sessions around, so um, that's probably good to get rid of them. Just on a regular basis. Do you
Yeah.
know where your sessions are?
Uh, no, my I probably have
No.
a ton. So like, I mean, I have a very
10 p.m.
well
What are your
known.
sessions?
I have a well known tab problem. Actually, just
You're one
too
of the
many
tab.
tabs.
Yeah, I am not
That
a too
that
many tabs.
for
I declare tab
anyone,
bankruptcy
but for anyone
often.
who is
Like I just
like
do
in
it.
a tab situation, there's always the magical, which I didn't know about till like I don't know 4 or 5 years ago, which is close all tabs to the right.
Mm.
Be a great name for a podcast too. It's it will it because it doesn't have to open all the tabs to close them, which is what saves you like a million years of closing them all.
Tab. Haters to the left, tabs to the right.
Right.
So, um, like looking at the arches, like, do you want to talk about, like, shall we talk about AI and contracts or?
Oh yeah, I may talk a little bit about AI and contracts because we're working on it a lot, which is a part of it is I think um, AI is pretty good at reading contracts. It's like it's very much up in the air whether you should like, and people are doing it. People are absolutely telling ChatGPT to write me an NDA or write me a professional services agreement, or hopefully not hopefully not doing DPAs and BAAs and privacy agreements, but
Mm.
there people are absolutely doing it. Um, I I certainly think it's risky, and not just because my company has open source standards that everyone could just use for free anyway. You can use our cloud service agreement or NDAs and BAAs and all that stuff that were written by real lawyers uh, that have experience with all this stuff. Um, but it is pretty good for reading contracts. So if you want to ask uh, Claude or ChatGPT like, hey, like, is there anything I should watch out for in this contract? It's like it's not too bad. It's not legal advice, so don't expect it to like. Don't bring it before a judge. Be like, well, they told me that Claude told me that this was okay. But it is pretty good for like catching stuff that you should watch out for because we all know when you're signing contracts, especially in a business case, um, it's always like a risk sort of question of like, should I take on this additional risk versus for a really big deal, or if it's like something that's not worth it, should I just like let it slide or argue against it? And it's pretty good for that. So one of the things that we're working on, we have like I said, we have open source standards that people can use, and sort of we have a software to make it really easy to send them, sign them, negotiate them in the app. Um, so it's like it's managing those contracts all the way through the cycle. And we let you customize them and all that stuff too, in amongst our standard, like our mutable standards we have in the contracts. But the stuff we're building now is helping people negotiate contracts. So if you can, you get a Word doc, and then like you send someone a contract and they send you back a Word doc, we'll help you compare the one that you sent to the one that they sent back to you with the red lines, and sort of help you, you know, using AI and other tools to like help you understand what has been changed, why they might have changed it, and whether like the thing that you're arguing about, whether what they're asking for is very standard versus like what you might have put in there at the beginning. So it's all exciting. It's stuff that we're hopefully will help people close deals faster and stuff like that. So that's my pitch for common paper. But I think
Right.
they're definitely like legal tech has been very behind the curve for many years, and there's a few companies out there really trying to make it go at making things more efficient because there's a ton of waste of lawyers reviewing contracts that are just there's it doesn't really matter. There's just a lot of you shouldn't be having your general counsel review NDAs every week because they're pretty
Mm,
much all the same.
yeah.
Um,
Well, oh, you had a thought?
you want to talk about we could talk about more about AI and contracts, but I think I'd rather talk about charts
Ah,
and
yes, our
events and stuff
final
like that coming up.
topic or semi-final topic.
Yeah. So um, just a couple of quick plugs. I am going to talk at the New York Data Visualization Meetup on February 26th at the Datadog office. You can register for that on meetup.com. And I'm really excited. I'm going to talk about, I have this software I've been building for a long time called Lineage, which I think I first showed at your JavaScript meetup, like in
Oh,
2013 or something like
yeah, I was
that.
gonna say 2013.
Um, and I'm still working on it. It's like a 10 or 11, 12 years later. And it really made it in the beginning to sort of visualize the 4,000 people that my aunt had collected data on for genealogical data. So it's all stuff like that. So it's not released in the data set, but all the visualizations open source, and you could use it to map sort of any sort of family tree you want. But in the time span since that, like people have used the software to like visualize their customer data, data from TV shows and stuff like that. And so, and it's my thing is not, it's like, it uses D3.js, it uses the forest directed layout from D3, which is, that's open source and that's been around for a long time. But my sort of wrapper on top of it is it's sort of like a time series too, because you can sort of start it in, on my family tree data, you can start it in like, 1725 and then hit play and watch it go year to year all the way to, 2025. Um, and it's been an interesting project to work on. And I just have a whole bunch of new features, new views of the data, new ways you can sort of visualize the data, ways you can sort of tweak it in runtime as opposed to like editing the code or managing a configuration file. So excited to talk about that in New York in a couple of weeks. This is my first time talking at the New York meetup, but I've been there before, and it's run by this woman Naomi B. Robbins, who's like, I don't know, she's like in her, I don't want to say how old she is, but she's a older lady, but she will like roast you if you like say something wrong or say something out of line or really come after you for the visualizations. And she's really funny, and I'm excited to go up and see her again. So
Hope see if you get roasted.
yeah, no, I'm sure I will get roasted for something. That's like her whole thing. We had a few like virtual data viz meetups that we did with other cities during the
Hmm.
time, and there was a lot of that going on in like March and April of 2020.
Right.
And then the Philadelphia data visualization meetup, the next event is going to be March 12th. We haven't posted it yet because we're doing that thing where like you can't post the meetup more than like 3 weeks in advance because we'll just forget
Yeah.
about it. So we usually wait till we'll probably post that in late February.
Have
That
you
should be
considered doing, because that's the week of Pi Day, that you could
Mm.
have a pie charts themed event?
I that would be kind of
Only
ironic because one of the things I'm like most known for is like hating
is
on
that
pie
hating
charts.
pie chart? Exactly.
That's like the thing I've definitely come around to like pie charts are fine, especially for certain cases where you have like low cardinality and they show data pretty well, especially if it's obvious data. And then Alberto Cairo, who I interviewed in April of 2020, is an author. He wrote this book that I have right next to me, Why How Charts
Mhm.
Lie. I don't know if this is reversed in your stream or
No,
not, but
yeah, it's fine.
it's
Let's see.
reversed on mine. But it's How Charts Lie, and he talks about you can there are no bad chart types. There's just sort of ways that people use them to mislead people with sort of like biases in the sample size, false causality, sort of non-representative samples.
Hmm.
You know, like the whole problem with like like every chart is a population chart kind of idea from XKCD. Like any chart you see, that there's a map with dots. It's going to be like heavy where the people are and not where they are
Yeah.
not. Um, but I think he went through the whole thing, and I was like, but Alberto, like 3D pie charts, those are evil, right? And he agreed with me that they are evil. So never use the 3D pie chart.
There you go.
Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And if Pam, if you're interested in giving a talk at the meetup, love to see you.
Yeah. Was there anything, if so, if people want to get in touch with you, follow what you're doing, you mentioned Blue Sky, are you on there?
Yeah, mostly today I'm on Blue Sky, and I think I forget how the usernames work there, but it's like I have my URL, so it's bengarvey.com on Blue
Mhm.
Sky, and then obviously on my website bengarvey.com. I have a website of charts, which is plotdevice.bengarvey.com. So there's charts there about tornado deaths, Twin Peaks, pizza,
I was gonna
pizza
say, is the
ratings,
pizza
all,
chart on there? Yeah.
pizza, all my main projects are on there except for Lineage, which was on GitHub at github.com/bengarvey/lineage. You can
Mhm.
see the latest version of that. And yeah, not so much on Twitter these days. So
Yeah, it's okay.
I mean, I would come back if you know someone else bought it, maybe I'd come back. But for now, I'm mostly off,
Yeah, I don't know. I
which
feel like
makes
we
me sad.
can.
Which that makes me sad because
Yeah.
I have a lot of good tweets.
I I deleted all my history a while ago, so kept the account. I putter around on there some. I used it to enter contests because it's a place where capitalism happens. Um, so so there's that or tweet referral codes. And but yeah, I kind of feel like while it's overwhelming that there's so many options of everything, I do really kind of think like it's if we could have less centralization and more like, you know, software neighborhood and more, oh, this is if there's like, oh, this is big in, Georgia, like the
Right,
state, like level of like, oh, this, like just trends like that, I think would be interesting.
right. I mean, there are some like I feel like when Mastodon was first around, like the Philly Mastodon was like kind of
Billy
popular.
Mastodon was fun. Yeah, we were hanging out.
The
I was hanging out there a
John's
while.
Club.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I feel like there's a little bit of that on Blue Sky in some places, but um, yeah, but I'll like go back to the blog thing that like it's it definitely felt like there were like local communities in the blog days
Yeah,
more than there are today for sure.
and like neighborhood blog reel. There really is. Yeah, I was thinking it's like, oh, what if we had what's like a decentralized protocol for blogs, and then like it's just RSS. That's
Yeah,
it's we already have it.
for
We've been
syndication,
having
yeah,
it.
it's the really
It's
simple syndication.
yeah, it's already there. This podcast is available on RSS. You can listen to it that way if you have however you want to consume a podcast. You can just grab the feed. And so
I do
that's
remember like a long
yeah.
time ago, like forever, a million years ago, like writing an RSS reader, like as a project. I was like, oh, that'd be the next big thing is gonna be RSS. So I should write an RSS reader. And then like Google Reader came out. I was like, well, this project is worthless. I don't need to do this anymore. And then
Gotta unearth it.
of course that Google Reader disappeared.
Yeah. Gotta yeah. It also not sure how much I want to commit to this analogy, but I think it's like the Walmart problem, but for everything. Like the Walmart problem, and what I mean is the I don't like the activism that was more popular in the past of, you know, preventing Walmart from coming to your town because if Walmart comes to your town, then goodbye to your retail, goodbye to your
Right.
grocery, goodbye to your because Walmart will just choke out your local businesses. And so that's I think it's like the Walmart problem, but for everything of, oh, we don't you don't
Yeah.
need a little RSS reader. There's Google Reader. Well, then Google Reader dominated, and then Google Reader ran away. You know,
Right.
so um, like the Walmart problem, like when we give all the power to large corporations who don't have the interests of the community at heart, unpleasant things happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Google in particular, now we know like they cancel all their projects. Like
The
they're
Google graveyard is real.
like you know, God help us if Gmail ever like somehow just went paid and like you couldn't use free Gmail anymore. Like I think it would break the entire internet. Like not that that's gonna happen, but
No,
it
because
did
it's
we do rely on a lot of this stuff like that's free that was like it used to be open source you relied on, and now it's just some sort of corporate um, supported service. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
and
maybe
that and. it's also, yeah, there's something I'm marinating. It's like there's like a step from us of like every, every little service that's like, oh, when you're building a business, it's like, oh, don't focus on not your core business. So, oh, I'll subscribe to this service to do this, I'll subscribe to this service to do that. And then you've got suddenly like a plethora of what? Like just a bunch of little subscriptions somewhere. And that is where it is. I feel like there's something like, is it
Yeah.
smart contracts? Could that actually be the chance to use it? Is like, let's invoke a smart contract. Like, let's have open APIs that are, powered by a smart contract, things like that.
Hmm.
Um, ideas. So,
Yeah. Yeah. The idea with I think the way we think about it, common paper, is on the front of services versus like building versus like using software or whatever
yeah.
for that stuff. Like we're really small. We're 8 people. We really just sort of, I think you only get like a few chances to like innovate on something. So I even take it to the next thing. Like I don't want to build anything that isn't like our product
Mm-hmm.
at all. And so like anytime we don't, like, I'm a big believer in like just boring technology. Like when I say boring
Mm-hmm.
technology, it's like websites, databases, like old frameworks,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that is not fancy, stuff that is not like, I don't want people to be working on like infrastructure or anything that, like, we're doing automation everywhere for we run linters on every single commit and every single like before they get committed, and just anywhere we can sort of speed things up that way and not have to like work on anything that isn't something a customer wants until you get product market fit, and then you can sort of build the stuff
Mm-hmm.
around the stuff. But I think until then, it's like you have to really concentrate on that because you only get a few chances to innovate on something. And I've worked at places where we used the hot thing, the thing that was new, and we had to have, there was so like little tooling around everything.
Yeah.
We had to build the tooling for
Yeah.
it before we could use it, the thing.
Yeah.
And with the promise of it being that, like, oh, if we don't use the latest technology, we can't hire the best developers. And if we don't continue using the best technology, the developers will quit. And my answer to that is always like, the developers are going to quit anyway, no matter what. So like no one's at a job forever. There are cases where people stick around for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, but like most of them quit after like 2 or 3 years, no matter what, because this was the way the job market went from 2010 to 2020 for sure. Whether that, like, I think we're in a different world now, but like it'll come back. It usually always comes back, and there'll be sort of some different level of job growth or different types of job profiles. But I think you know, we definitely need more software still. It's that we haven't like run out of the need for new stuff to
Mm-hmm.
work on and build, and I think that's going to happen. But uh, I like I said, as a CTO, that's like, I sometimes refer to myself as like the boring CTO, just because it's just
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate like tried and true technologies and not having to fight with them to get them to do what I want them to do.
Mm-hmm. And with that, any parting note? I know, like, we did a parting note and then we said things.
Oh no, I think of all the boring tech, my favorite is probably like Postgres DB. Is like the greatest
Shout out to
database.
Postgres.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big
Uh,
believer in relational databases. That's my favorite type.
there you go. There's the Postgres for everything is a good read.
Yeah, well,
Um,
it's our default choice for everything. Yeah.
mhm, mhm, mhm. And so, well, thanks for coming on Ignore All Previous Instructions. People can find you at bengarvey.com. And this podcast is available on YouTube at Tech Cult Podcast. On Also on Blue Sky at Tech Cult Podcast .bsky.social, that sort of thing. And on Patreon at Tech Cult, or at / Tech Cult. So thanks for coming on, Ben.
Yeah,
And
thanks for having me, Pam.
yeah. All right, everybody. Until next time.